I'm Jim Leach, and I'll be your host for the next hour as we discuss important issues facing Lake Forest with 6 of the candidates who hope to serve on the City Council for the next 4 years. We appreciate you joining us. The South Orange County Economic Coalition and Cox Communications have teamed up to host a series of forums featuring local candidates on the ballot for the November 4th general election. It's an honor to bring them to you. Today, we're pleased to welcome our candidates. They are Andrew Hamilton, Mike Healy, Jim Gardner, David Bass, Tom Cagley, and Elizabeth Miller. Scott Voigt was invited but was unable to attend. Lake Forest voters will vote for 3 candidates on the November 4th ballot. And here's the format for this forum. Each candidate will be allowed up to 2 minutes to make an opening statement. I will then pose a series of questions to which each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. At the end of these questions, each candidate will have 1 minute to provide a summary closing statement. Our first opening statement will be delivered by Andrew Hamilton.
Hi, my name is Andrew Hamilton, and I'm running for Lake Forest City Council. Thank you for this time tonight to be able to communicate my candidacy with the voters. As you can see in the ballot statement, you'll see that I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. I'm also have 7 years of experience as either planning commissioner or a chief financial officer of 2 different water agencies. I love our city. We've got so many great residents in town, and I just love the neighbors, friends of our children. We attend Saddleback Church and are members there. I've also got a lot of great endorsements. I've got the Orange County Republican Party. I've got the Lincoln Club of Orange County. I also have Senator Mimi Walters, Mayor Dwight Robinson. And I want to tell you a little bit about why I'm running for City Council. Again, we've got a great community. I also want to mention that I've got a love of freedom and liberty, and I think government works best when it focuses on these. I also want to say my kids and family, we've got our futures, and your families too. Your futures are on the line, and I want to be very committed to making sure the future is strong for Lake Forest. Here are some of the things I want to do. I want to reduce reduce burdensome regulations. Right now, the cell phone ordinances that we have are burdensome, and it doesn't allow great cell phone reception in town. We also have limited competition in other areas like internet connections and cable providers. I think it's important that we attack these burdensome regulations. Second, I want to improve safety. It's important that as homeowners in town or apartment dwellers, we have lots of opportunities to receive information from crime services that will help allow us to better understand crime in our city and how we can respond to that. And lastly, I want to improve traffic flow. We can build streets, improve intersections, and also coordinate signal lights. Thank you.
Our next opening statement comes from Mike Healy.
Hi, my name is Mike Healy. I'm very pleased to be in this forum today, being able to speak why I want to be on the City Council. I am a CPA, a 12-year resident of Lake Forest, and a homeowner for the last 10 years. I am vested in this community as I am raising my 7- and 10-year-old here. I am running for City Council because I want the city to be the best that it can be. I bring fiscal conservatism, transparency, and accountability to the table. I have 5 top issues in no particular order. First, campaign finance reform. City contractors should not be contributing to city officials. This creates a huge conflict of interest. Are they accountable to the people of Lake Forest or to the city contractors? Second, term limits. 2 terms on the City Council is plenty. We have a measure on the upcoming ballot that says that a City Council member could still serve 24 of 26 years. That, in my mind, is not term limits. 2 terms max is what we need. Third, traffic. Traffic is horrible. Traffic has become an afterthought. We're adding 4,500 residences. We need a traffic committee. Fourth, to go along with the traffic and the 45 new homes, we have not added any additional schools or school capacity. My kids have to go 4 miles south into Mission Viejo into a less than good school, and we applied for a transfer to both Lake Forest and Foothill Elementary and were denied because they were impacted, and we're still not adding any more schools. Lastly, crime. compared to the rest of the country, Lake Forest is great. Compared to our neighboring cities, not so good. I think we need to do better. I think we need to explore contracting with the Irvine Police Department more. That's it. Thank you.
We're hearing opening statements for candidates for the City Council in Lake Forest. We've heard from Andrew Hamilton and Mike Healy. Next up, Jim Gardner.
Hi, my name is Jim Gardner. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I was a university professor. I was a management consultant. Some of my clients included General Motors, Waste Management. I also own my own software development company and my own internet marketing company. For the past decade, my wife and I have lived here in Lake Forest. My son lives here in Lake Forest, and my granddaughter, Sophia, lives here in Lake Forest. So I have a big investment in this community, and I want to make it better. Here are some of the things I propose to do when I'm on the council. Number one, I want to involve more people. The current city council doesn't want to do this. I'd like to have a traffic committee, because we all know traffic is really poor in the city. Other people will mention it today. I'm prepared to do something about it and set up a traffic committee and make real changes to our traffic. The current city council says no, don't bother. I'd like to have a nonprofit community foundation that helps our schools, that helps create the Boys and Girls Club we're working on right now to try to get going. Other communities have these nonprofit community foundations and they work great. Why don't we have it here? Why won't our council let us have that? Those are two very important issues for me that I plan to work on. Another important issue for me is what I call putting Lake Forest first. Do you realize less than 2% of our $35 million a year budget is actually spent on you and me, people and businesses here in Lake Forest? That's insane. A few years ago, it was 5%. 5% was too little. Today, it's 2%. We are giving our money to other cities, to other people, and not investing it in our own city, which is why our projected tax growth is less than other cities, which is why you see so many vacant storefronts. We need to put Lake Forest first. Your current council won't do it. I will do it. If you vote for me and put me on the council, I'll do these things and more than that. Go to gardnerforcouncil.com and you can take a look. When I'm on the council, you'll see the most productive 4 years we've ever seen before. This is a good city. It could be better. Thank you.
Next up, candidate Dave Bass.
Hello, I'm Dave Bass. I was appointed to the City Council in December 2013. I, along with my wife and family, moved to Lake Forest in 1993. We have 4 children who attended schools in Lake Forest and participated in various sports. I now have 2 grandchildren who do the same. There are good things happening in Lake Forest, and it is a great and safe place to live. Some of the good things are Lake Forest will open a state-of-the-art 87-acre sports park in November 2014. Lake Forest is rated number 6 as best cities for young families in California. A sheriff's substation will be in Lake Forest opening in January 2015. Over 3,000 jobs were created in Lake Forest in the last 5 years. The unemployment rate is about 3.5%. It is also rated number 1 in Orange County, number 9 in the state, for best cities in California for job seekers. My priorities are to synchronize the traffic signals to reduce driving times, expand recreation programs to maximize the use of the new sports park, improve neighborhood watch and emergency preparedness, and ensure that school impact fees paid by developers in Lake Forest are spent on school improvements in the city of Lake Forest. I have real experience in leadership, a leader in municipal finance. I've been a consultant to cities, some of them in financial distress. I've served as a Scoutmaster for over 7 years and a former Saddleback District Eagle Scout project advisor. Worked with over 250 Scouts to help them successfully complete their Eagle projects. In conclusion, I'm committed to strengthening police services to maintain a low crime rate as the city grows, increase business networking programs, push the city to build its own modest city hall with dedicated senior center, and this will save the city about $1 million a year in rent, which can be used for other programs, approve balanced budgets that keep expenses under control, and fight against accounting gimmicks and one-time revenue schemes that increase taxes over time. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Tom Cagley.
Good evening. My name is Tom Cagley. I'm a retired Army colonel and had the privilege of having 2 colonel commands, which is great background for being on the city council. I also graduated from the Army War College. Since retirement, I have served as a disaster mitigation specialist, wrote a wildfire mitigation handbook for the state of Texas, and have served in project management both in government and private commercial industry. This past year, I had the privilege of serving on Orange County Grand Jury. I was chairman of the Cities Committee and a member of the County Government Committee. Both committees are excellent background and training for anyone who wants to serve in a city council area. I was a founding member and continue to be a member of the USMC Support Committee in Lake Forest, the committee that led to the adoption of the 1st Law Enforcement Battalion from Camp Pendleton. I support many of Saddleback Church's military issues where they go down and support Pendleton Marines. My major issues and concerns have to do with, first, water. I've twice testified before the City Council regarding the water, as it's becoming more and more apparent that this is an issue that needs to be looked at now and take plans for the future, not wait for it to happen and then try and do something about it. Traffic Commission. Traffic is a real issue in Lake Forest, as you've heard the other candidates, many of the other candidates already addressed. I joined Dr. Gardner in my call for activating the community foundation, which actually exists. It's just the city council refused to staff it and to populate it. This would be a very helpful foundation to have within the city and provide many functions for the citizens to participate in. I believe we need an enforceable ethics code. Lake Forest has a great ethics code, it's just not enforceable. I agree. We need meaningful term limits. I think that 2 terms of 4 years each are more than sufficient. Finally, I also believe we should provide a senior service center for our senior citizens. And that's really all I need to say. Thank you.
Our final opening statement will be from Elizabeth Miller.
Hi there, I am Liz Miller. I am the mother to 2 beautiful daughters. I'm a Lake Forest business owner. I was raised in the Saddleback Valley. I have been a Lake Forest homeowner since 1998. I'm very well aware of the situations that surround not only Lake Forest, but our surrounding communities, as I've been here for close to 50 years. And there are many specifics that I would like to address. We have a gem of a city here in South Orange County. I feel like it could even be more prosperous, more profitable, a better place to raise our families. And there are quite a few areas that some of our other my other running mates have touched on, but I'd like to elaborate on some of those as well. One is the water situation that we do have that has been brought up by Mr. Cagley. I just read a report that from UC Davis that it looks like this drought has extended past the 180-year mark for California, but since the 1500s, this could be the worst drought that California has ever seen. There have been many areas within the city that I have seen that we could use reclaimed water and water conservation, and I'd like to look into those things firsthand if I'm elected to city council. As well, I would like to look at every contract that the city does business with, every single contract that we do business with, because it appears that there's a lot of wasteful spending here in the city. I would like to know why the city spends almost little over $10,000 a month for graffiti removal. I travel the city every day and I'm not seeing too much graffiti. I would like term limits to 4-year terms only. I would like to stop the expansion of the music jail and keep very high propensity criminals from being able to relocate to that facility right near our homes, our family, and our children. Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll now begin the question portion of the forum. Each candidate will have 1 minute in turn to respond to the question posed. Our first question involves the delicate balance every city faces between quality of life and economic development. There's been a tremendous amount of residential and commercial growth in the city in recent years. In your opinions, how has the city handled this growth? Please cite some specific examples of positive or negative growth and tell us how you think the city should manage growth in the future in order to maintain quality of life for Lake Forest residents. We'll start with Mr. Healy.
Well, Lake Forest is growing, as I had said, 4,500 new residents. I am not anti-growth. I think there should be a definite balance between growth and quality of life. 4,500 residences, we already have a traffic problem, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of dealing with it. We need to sink all lights, we need a traffic committee to deal with that, and we need more schools to accommodate those 4,500 new residences.
Back to our question, how has the city handled growth? Cite some specific examples of positive or negative growth, and tell us how you think the city should manage growth in the future. Mr. Gardner.
City's done a terrible job managing growth. We're about to get 42,000 more vehicles per day in the city. We're about to get 12,000 new people moving in here with 6,000 plus more school kids, and they're not building more schools, and they're not building more classrooms. This uncontrolled growth in the next few years will strangle our cities, and yet the city council won't set up a traffic commission. That makes no sense. We not only need a traffic commission, we also need to put a temporary moratorium on all new housing developments. We simply cannot squeeze more people into the city without adversely impacting our quality of life. The Planning Commission and the City Council have both failed us by putting this enormous growth. Our population in the next 3 years will grow by 15%, which is unlike the growth in any other city around here. So we need to control that growth. We need to set up the traffic committee, and we need to have a moratorium. Thank you.
We're talking about growth in the city of Lake Forest. Mr. Bass.
Yeah, one of the first things the city did to accommodate this growth, which was approved prior to me getting on the council, was require the developer to fund the completion of Alton Parkway in conjunction with the County of Orange and City of Irvine, and which was completed before the development and is open today. Additionally, the city required the developer to, and other developers as they come on, to contribute to the city's park construction fund, which is what funded the 87-acre sports park. It is also required of the developer to pay school impact fees, which I want to see are committed to schools within the city of Lake Forest. I think the city continues to work with developers and make sure that it's a managed growth. The traffic issue, if it had been, Baker Ranch had been developed as originally allowed, it would have created double the traffic over what's going to happen now with the residential, which is about a 5% increase over current traffic volumes. Thank you.
We're talking about how the city has handled growth and its impact on economic and quality of life. We turn to Mr. Cagley.
I think that our growth issue has been pretty well examined by the previous candidates. However, I would like to add the fact we need to look at both neighbors, Mission Viejo on one side and Irvine Great Park on the other side. Both of them are also adding numerous numbers of homes in their areas. That doesn't impact on our schools necessarily, but certainly impacts on our traffic because Irvine Boulevard, Trabuco Canyon, or Trabuco Road, and Muirlands Road are going to be impacted by these residents of these cities as well as the residents in our city. And these need to be taken into consideration, so we need a traffic commission or committee. I don't like seeing empty storefronts. Nobody does. We need to bring more business to the city and try and increase our business growth. My biggest concern is the fact, again, we need infrastructure. Before we need to be proactive and not reactive. Before growth, we need to make sure the infrastructure is there, especially water and traffic. Thank you.
On the question of growth and development in Lake Forest, Ms. Miller.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with some of the people running for city council. A traffic commission is absolutely pertinent to tackle this ongoing problem that we're having that is only getting worse. Mr. Gardner cited it perfectly when he said there's only new home growth going in with no commission set up for us to deal with the traffic. I find it absurd that Mr. Healy and his wife have to drive their children to another city to get their children to school. This is absolutely ridiculous. This should not be the case. We should have schools in our city to be able to handle the influx of the growth in our city instead of us carting our children around to supporting cities to handle this. This is only going to add to the already congested problem that this city has. A traffic commission, why it hasn't been set up to date is beyond me, but that will change if I'm elected to city council. Thank you.
We're talking with candidates in Lake Forest about growth and how it should be managed in Lake Forest. Turn now to Mr. Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a great question, and I think for some of us, the history of Lake Forest starts in the more recent future, 10 years ago, with the El Toro corridor being in redevelopment, and I think that whole area has been beautified. So I think in the past we have handled growth well. I think we need common sense. What really needs to happen in this next in the next 4 years is to fight traffic, like I've previously discussed. We need to encourage schools to be built while realizing we are not the school district. We also need to implement some of the recycled water, just like some of the water districts have done. And then lastly, there's burdensome regulations for 15% landscape requirements in industrial areas. Those are things that increases water consumption. We need to look at these ordinances that are on the books that are existing that will help us plan the future growth of our great city. Thank you.
Thank you. Traffic is certainly an issue of concern in any growing city, and when you consider the business growth in Lake Forest, the residential growth anticipated in the unincorporated areas of Orange County, ongoing congestion on the I-5, and the continuing debates over what to do with the 241 toll road, what specific solutions do you have to mitigate the transportation-related future impacts on your city? We start with Mr. Gardner.
Obviously, a minute isn't enough time to answer such a broad question. Please go to my website, gardnerforcouncil.com, and you'll get lots of answers. Let me give you one specific example now. El Toro Road's our most congested road. Do you know between Muirlands and the freeway, all those streets that come in there are cul-de-sacs? In other words, thousands and thousands of people who live along that corridor are required to come into El Toro Drive, plus the El Toro traffic. Plus, the Planning Commission is building a new gas station in the middle of that. So poor planning on the part of the city has created part of that enormous traffic jam. What we need to do is to open up those cul-de-sacs. And many of those streets can be opened up tomorrow at almost no cost to the city so that thousands of people, instead of being crowded into El Toro, could go out to the north and the south and exit in that manner. That's one example, one small example, but that would make a major difference to the most congested part of our city. Again, gardnerforcouncil.com will give you even more examples. Thank you.
Talking about solutions to traffic issues in Lake Forest, Mr. Bass.
Yes, as I stated earlier, one of the key elements of my platform is to have all traffic signals in Lake Forest synchronized. Some are currently, but not all of them. That will help. I was not in favor, I'm not in favor of a traffic commission. They deal with a lot of traffic issues, parking permits and all that kind of stuff. My proposal is to have a traffic task force that's there for a limited duration to focus on the big traffic issues, not the traffic permit system. Also, I would not be in favor of opening up the cul-de-sacs along El Toro Road. The traffic there is much better than it used to be, and opening up the cul-de-sacs would just cause increased traffic within neighborhoods. Thank you.
We're talking about traffic solutions in Lake Forest, Mr. Cagley.
Well, you're not going to hear too much different from what you've heard from the other candidates, except for Mr. Bass. I do think we need a traffic commission or traffic committee. It could be a sub of the Planning Commission, which it is in some of our neighboring cities, but we need something that people are just focused on traffic and not on other peripheral issues. Parking is probably more of a police issue than it is a traffic commission issue. I think that we have to be proactive in deciding before we build something. We need to make sure we got the infrastructure there to support whatever we're going to build or allow to be built in our area. Traffic is an issue because of the crowded conditions of the city itself, the narrow lanes, and I think that the recently enacted enforceable bike clearance of 3 feet can become a problem. We need to make sure we're on top of that as the time goes on, because again, we aren't going to have any bicyclists run over, and we have to obey that law, and it is important. And I think that's really all I need to say to it. Appreciate your consideration.
Talking about traffic solutions for Lake Forest, we turn now to Ms. Miller.
Well, as I cited earlier, we need a panel of experts. I am clearly no expert on being on a traffic commission. I just know that I am stuck in traffic, as well as many of you are, on a daily basis. And maybe the current city council, either they don't drive or they don't care that they are in traffic. Maybe that's why they haven't set up a commission to date. But for the rest of us that have places to go and kids to pick up and doctor's appointments to set, we need to have a commission to determine what is the best plan of action going forward. Is it to open up cul-de-sacs? Is it to widen some streets? Is it to stop the growth of gas stations that are going in right on El Toro Road, right near the freeway on-ramp and off-ramp, that are going to congest El Toro Road even more? I would like you to consider this. I would put a traffic commission on board immediately to decide how we can alleviate our problems. Thank you.
When you consider business growth in Lake Forest and the residential growth, what specific solutions do you anticipate to mitigate transportation-related future impacts? Mr. Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. So again, my website is electandrewhamilton.com. I have further explanation there, but in the minute that I've been allotted, I don't know if some of those cul-de-sacs would be well served opening up to some of the other streets. I think Kavanaugh is one of those streets. And for you residents living on Kavanaugh, that street, you've complained very much about how El Toro traffic skirts around El Toro Road and goes onto your street on Kavanaugh. So I'm not sure if that's quite the right idea. I am in favor of traffic commission. I think we should build more roads. I think Alton Parkway is a great example of that. Also, synchronizing traffic lights. I think it's very important. Some of the other cities that that I've done some research with, their traffic lights are synchronized, but ours are not very well synchronized in Lake Forest. We could do a better job both in the city and intercity. And then last but not least is improving intersections. If there's right turn lanes or left turn improvements that can be done with those intersections, I think it's important to go the full step and improve the intersections in Lake Forest.
Talking with candidates about traffic mitigation in Lake Forest, we turn to Mr. Healy.
I live off El Toro, and on a good day, it's very difficult to go from the freeway to Geronimo in 20 minutes. I'm 100% in favor of a traffic commission, and all lights in the city need to be synchronized as best they can. That's all I have to add.
Throughout Orange County and up and down the state, there have been growing concerns about unfunded pension liabilities and lifetime medical benefits for city employees. Question is, how, in your opinion, has Lake Forest managed its obligations to current and future retired civil servants while protecting taxpayers from the costly ramifications associated with these retirement benefits? What do you believe needs to be done moving forward? This time we'll start with Mr. Gardner.
Thank you. The city's done a pretty good job in managing the pension obligations. We have our own internal system, and our employees, we're simply not going to face that problem with our employees. We do have the problem, though, because we use the Orange County Police Department, and most of the problems with the pensions are going to be hit for the county because of the police and the fire, and we use the police and the fire. So that becomes a major problem for us because the pension liabilities of Orange County Sheriff Department will become our pension liabilities. That's why the rise in our cost of funding public safety in Lake Forest has been much higher than the rest of the county, the rest of the other cities in the county. It's growing at 57%, and it now consumes 40% of our budget. So that pension liability, although we've protected it with our city employees, is sitting out there with the Orange County Sheriff Department. One option would be to contract with the city of Irvine, which has an excellent police department, something the city has so far refused to look into. Thank you.
Talking about unfunded pension and lifetime medical benefits, Mr. Bass.
Yeah, the city has done a prudent job in terms of its pension and retiree medical benefits. First of all, the medical benefits are at a minimal level as required by state law, and they are fully funded by the city. With respect to pensions, the city never had the employees at a super lucrative system, and all employees are required to contribute their full share. The overall pension liability is approximately 10% of the city's reserves. So if it makes financial sense, and I'm not sure that it does at this time, the city could fully pay that liability at any time. Thank you.
Thank you. Talking about unfunded pension liabilities and medical benefits, we turn to Mr. Cagley.
Councilmember Bass is correct. The grand jury did a study of cities, the 34 cities in Orange County this past year, and Lake Forest ranks very high in its pension liability and responsibility. We need to protect against it because we are, again, hooked to the Orange County Sheriff's Department for our police support, and that is where it is almost out of control. We need to keep that under control as much as we can, and the best way to do that would be to do some competitive bidding for our police department with surrounding cities like Irvine, Tustin, others that have their own police department, make the sheriff become competitive in gaining the county contract. And I really don't have too much more to add. There's no sense of wasting your time. Thank you.
Thank you. On the question of pension liabilities, Ms. Miller.
Yes, actually, since everything has been touched on and Mr. Cagley said it perfectly, I do not know enough about that to even comment. However, I will make a right turn, and something that was brought up earlier was the pensions that we do have with the Orange County Sheriff's Department. Since Orange County Sheriff's Department was brought up, I would like to bring up the fact that I think the city of Lake Forest should look strongly at the contract we have with Orange County Sheriff Department, and we should also look very strongly at partnering with the city of Irvine, who has an amazing police force, an amazing police department, and I think the city council, the new city council, should definitely take a look at partnering with them. Thank you.
Thank you. How, in your opinion, has Lake Forest managed its obligations to current and future retired civil servants while protecting taxpayers from the costly ramifications associated with retirement benefits, and what do you believe needs to be done moving forward? Mr. Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. Great question. I think it's important to realize that the city of Lake Forest is a contract city. And so if it's, my motto is if it's a service that can be found in a phone book, we should contract that out. I think that's a very important thing. That allows our number of employees to stay at a minimum, and therefore the pensions that we do pay those existing employees that in the CalPERS system would be reduced than if compared to a city that does not have contract employees, has more employees. So I think it's important to keep those employee positions at a minimum. I think another thing to do is to also realize that we are not on the hook for those police pensions. We're paying the contract as we go for our police services, the sheriff, and we're not on the hook for those pensions in the future. So I think that one of the previous candidates stated that, and that's not the case. We are not on the hook for those police pensions in the future. But keep employee positions at a minimum and contract everything out that is in the phone book. Thank you.
Thank you. Managing retirement benefits in Lake Forest, Mr. Healy.
So the overall city of Lake Forest city budget is good. It's always positive, and as Mr. Bass was saying, we are funded on city employees. And just because the Sheriff's Department was brought up, I want to say that we need to look at competitive bidding. And I grew up in Irvine. Irvine PD is stellar, and I think we need to look into that.
Thank you. 2 years ago, there was vigorous debate about the impact of financial contributions from developers and independent expenditures on the city council campaigns, particularly related to a proposed development in the city. What do you believe should be done, if anything, to control the impact of such money and independent expenditures in local campaigns? We'll start with Mr. Bass.
When that issue came before the city council, my suggestion and recommendation, which was not supported by others, is to mirror requirements for campaign financing reform along with what the Supreme Court has recently decided. Unfortunately, they have decided that certain limits are not permitted by state, federal, or local laws. I think it's up to each candidate to choose whether they accept donations from whoever they accept from, and then they must report it per law. I think the better way to approach campaign contribution limits is, since there's a difficulty in controlling the amount of contributions, it's more on the expenditure side. Because if expenditures are limited, then that ends up reducing the amount of money that is needed to run for office. Thank you.
Thank you. Talking about controlling the impact of independent expenditures and local money in local campaigns, Mr. Cagley.
I believe that there's no council member, no council candidate can be bought for whatever a contractor is going to give them. But I think it's very important if they receive contributions from contractors or people doing business with the city. No, I'll take that back. Nobody doing business with the city should be contributing to the contracts. But future bidders can, as long as the candidate, as long as the council members are upfront with it and they have transparency, and the people who are voting for them know who their supporters are, who they're accepting money from. Again, I do not believe that candidates nor existing council members can be bought for the small amounts of money, relatively speaking, that can be given to them by contractors. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just think that you have to have transparency in it. Thank you.
Talking about campaign finance, Ms. Miller.
Campaign finance. I feel, and actually I know, that too many contributions have been made to city council members for a vote or for not voting for something. I feel too many people have been bought by money, and I know for a fact I will not take corporate contributions to vote one way or to vote another. I will not take them for any vote whatsoever. I feel this is very much not transparency issue. People should not take money and then all of a sudden 4,500 homes get to be built up the street from my house. I feel this goes on and on and on, many of which we are not aware of, but I am aware of many situations this has taken place in, and I find it insulting. And I also feel that I brought up the other night as well, is that regardless if it's okay and legal to do it on a state form, it doesn't mean that it's morally right to take contributions from a corporation. Thank you.
Thank you. We're talking with candidates for City Council in Lake Forest. What do you believe should be done, if anything, to control the impact of money and independent expenditures in local campaigns? We turn to Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you. I think it's important to know that transparency is key. I think if someone wants to donate to a campaign, I think they have the right to under the First Amendment. I think democracy is messy sometimes. I think the alternative is government finance campaigns, and I don't think anyone wants that. I think if we want government out of our lives, so I'm not in favor of campaign contribution limits. I think it leads to, like I said, government finance campaigns. That then limits contributions to candidates and candidacies to candidates who are rich and can fund their own campaigns, and I don't think we want that either. Even though it is kind of messy, I think it's important that we preserve freedom and democracy in our city and allow contributors to donate to whatever campaign they want. It's their right to freedom of expression. Thank you.
Talking about controlling campaign money, we turn to Mr. Healy.
I have a real problem with city contractors contributing to city council members. This creates a huge conflict of interest, but if we can't control it, I think council members need to definitely excuse themselves from any votes that involves the city contractor that they've taken money from. I myself have not taken any money, and I don't plan on taking any money. I don't like owing political favors, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Talking about the impact of financial contributions from developers and independent expenditures in city council campaigns, what do you believe should be done, if anything, to control the impact of such money and independent expenditures in local campaigns? Mr. Gardner.
Interestingly enough, I was the first person to expose this in Lake Forest. In Lake Forest, we have council members who are not here today who've taken tens of thousands of dollars and then voted in favor of the companies or the people who came before them asking for a favor or a contract or an ordinance. Technically, it's not illegal, but you and I know exactly what's going on. That needs to be stopped, and it's hard to believe that you can call that freedom of expression. That's like saying I can go into a store and say, put up a gun and say, give me a chocolate bar, and that's my freedom of expression to do that. Taking money from people and then voting for what they ask for and giving them millions of dollars worth of contracts is simply wrong. In the study I did and continue to do, I found that of 120 decisions made by the city council, 119 out of 120 followed the money. Only one out of 120 decisions did not follow the money. That tells you something. Lake Forest decisions should be decided by people in Lake Forest, not by outside interests. Thank you.
Thank you. There are some who have argued that term limits are needed to change the way City Hall operates in Lake Forest. Do you agree? We're a little short on time now, so we're going to give you 15 seconds to say yes or no and give us a brief reason why. And this time we'll start with Mr. Cagley.
Yes, it's a simple answer. I said that in my opening statement, and I do believe we should have two-term term limits. Thank you.
We're talking about term limits. Ms. Miller.
Yes, we need term limits. I think it is a sad day when Lake Forest residents have to go to the polls on November 4th and decide to vote that they want two 12-year terms with 2 years off in between. I think that's horrific.
Talking about term limits and the changes that need to be made in City Hall and Lake Forest, we turn now to Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you. Great question. Term limits are important in our country. I think you can see that the president has them. I would fully support term limits in the city.
Thank you. Again, talking about term limits in Lake Forest, Mr. Healy.
I 100% support term limits. A two-term limit should be max. This takes away strength of incumbency and encourages everyday citizens like me and a few of these other people to run.
We're giving candidates for City Council in Lake Forest an opportunity to tell us how they feel about term limits. We turn to Mr. Gardner.
If it was good enough for George Washington, it's good enough for me. I give you a vow, if I'm elected, I will serve 2 terms and no more, and whether or not there's an ordinance or not, I will step down at that time. Thank you.
Very much. And finally, on the question of term limits, Mr. Bass.
I'm in favor of term limits. Unfortunately, on the ballot, there's only one choice of term limits. I would have preferred the current one plus an alternative of a specific 2 terms or 3 terms and no returns. I myself am committed to to not run for more than 2 terms if elected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank all the candidates for their responses. We now move to closing statements of 1 minute each. We're going to give each candidate an opportunity to take a minute to summarize their campaign, and we'll begin with Ms. Miller.
Yes, hi. I hope that some of the things I've said this afternoon have given you pause to consider me for election to Lake Forest City Council. I speak my word. I tell it like it is. I would like to find out more and more each day, each week, in regards to how I could be an asset to the Lake Forest City Council. I've done much research already, and even after today, will continue to do more. I strive to stop the expansion of the Music Jail and to keep hardened criminals from being transferred there. I am in favor of term limits. I would like to see a green environment initiative. I would also like to halt the contributions from corporations to council members that then gives them the opportunity to vote in one direction or the other. And I hope you will vote for me on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've been delighted today to talk with candidates for the City Council in Lake Forest. Our next closing statement comes from Mr. Hamilton.
Yes, this election, November 4th, is an important election. It's important to the city's future, to the residents of our town, and really it will show the direction that we go forward in the future. Just a little bit more, I was selected first by a random draw, so I'm first on the ballot. I've got a lot of great endorsements. Orange County Republican Party, Senator Mimi Walters, our current mayor, Dwight Robinson. I would bring common sense to regulations, improve traffic flow, and reduce crime. I've always been interested in serving. I've been to Ecuador on a mission trip. I've been to Mexico for an outreach. Olive Crest volunteer. I'm an AYSO coach and volunteer. I'm a volunteer at 3 or 4 other nonprofits in the county and city. I'm really passionate about this election and serving you, the great residents and people of Lake Forest. I want to just mention my websites really quick, electandrewhamilton.com, and I'm also on Facebook, facebook.com, Andrew Hamilton, Lake Forest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Closing statement from Mr. Healy.
I want the best for my city. I bring fiscal conservatism, transparency, and accountability to the table. There are 8 great candidates running, and you get to pick 3. I encourage you to vote for all 3 candidates. There are 5 positions I'm running on. Campaign finance reform. I want to limit corporate contributions, term limits, 2 terms max, traffic, we need to do better. Schools, we need schools. We need additional capacity in existing schools to handle the 4,500 new homes. Lastly, crime. We trail behind Irvine and Mission Viejo. We need to get where they are. And thank you.
Thank you. We're hearing closing statements today from the candidates for City Council in the City of Lake Forest. We turn now to Mr. Gardner.
Hi, thank you very much for tuning in. It's really important for us to have a democracy in which people participate, and I really appreciate you doing that. Please read my articles. I write a daily article on the Lake Forest Patch, and you can communicate to me through that. I'm also available on GardnerForCouncil.com. My issues, which have come up several times here, are music jail, stopping that, stopping the corruption in the city, putting Lake Forest first and returning more of our money to our own people. It's important that we deal with the growth and how that's going to impact our schools, because my granddaughter lives here. Schools are very important to me. I'm also concerned about the crime rate. I think you've also seen here there are people who are telling you that the city's okay the way it is, just leave it alone, and there are people here tonight saying we can make it a lot better. I believe we can make Lake Forest a lot better than it is, and I appreciate having your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Closing statement from Mr. Bass.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that the Sheriff's Department that serves the City of Lake Forest does a super job. They have a lot of resources that we could call on if needed, more than any other city that can provide. Not that we can't look for other alternatives, but I want to assure you that we have a great service right now. We have a balanced budget. I'm committed to keeping it that way. That's one of my areas of expertise. There are only about 60 employees in the city, far less than you would find at any other city of similar size. One of my priorities is, as part of the new Civic Center, is to have a separate senior center as opposed to one that's being shared right now. And also, I would hope that as we talk about campaign contributions and financing, that each of us as candidates will identify all sources of expenditures made either directly by us or made by someone else on our behalf. I want to keep good things happening in Lake Forest, and with that, I ask for you to continue to vote for me so those good things can continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And closing statement from Mr. Cagley.
I'd like to say the fact that, one, I enjoy the opportunity to represent you on the City Council. I'm asking for your vote and your consideration. I go back to my experiences, particularly that of the last year on the Orange County Grand Jury. Many of the things we discussed here this evening were addressed by that grand jury. I encourage you to go to the ocgrandjury.org site and look for the things on schools, public retirement, financing, other issues that are a concern to you. I believe, as I've stated before, that we need really worry about our water in future here. We need to worry about traffic commission. We do need enforceable ethics code. Term limits have been discussed, and we do need a senior center. For the record, I am not taking, nor will I anticipate receiving any campaign contributions. My defense of the fact is I think that most people seeking public office are honest people and cannot be bought. That's the reason I brought that up the last time during the questioning. Thank you again. I'd like your consideration for my vote. Appreciate the fact you tuned in to listen to this show for the hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. We'd like to thank Andrew Hamilton, Mike Healy, Jim Gardner, Dave Bass, Tom Cagley, Elizabeth Miller for joining us. Scott Voights again was invited but was unable to attend. And they've also taken time from their campaigns to join us today, and we appreciate it. This and all the forums are available throughout the month on Cox Channel 3. You can also view them via Cox On Demand in the Free Zone and on Cox's YouTube channel. We encourage you to learn more about the South Orange County Economic Coalition and its ongoing efforts to promote growth and economic vitality throughout the South Orange County region by visiting our website at www.economiccoalition.com. On behalf of the South Orange County Economic Coalition and Cox Communications, I'm Jim Leach. Thank you for being with us, and be sure to vote on November 4th.